yes, I opened Twitter and it was brah. It's just all I heard was brah, and then
it's funny I didn't see it. I've been very busy up to the end of the day, and I got our DM group on Twitter, and it was basically Watts talking to CC Kuhn, and it was like, oh, this is a spicy one. Somebody said that. I was like, what? What's going on? You know, and as it turns out, they have sort of a problem with exotics and DPS, and super energy, and so you'll get into it.
Should I go?
A lot of big changes.
Should I go through the Sandbox change?
Let's just go through. Just read it.
Yeah. Okay. So season Opulence Sandbox Changes. It's coming fast approach. Similar to past seasons, some Sandbox changes will arrive with it. And this one is going to be a doozy with the Sandbox changes. Let's see. So from the Destiny dev team for the season Opulence.
By the way, can I just say that notice how they don't say a specific person?
They didn't want to out anybody.
They knew what was coming.
They've usually used some Sandbox designer's name, right, to explain it.
Oh, yeah, it's a good point.
Here's Josh Hamrick to explain what's going on.
Why'd you make all these spicy decisions?
Here's the 800 people trying to find who did it.
They really should have just put Holtzman : like, I mean, come on.
Holtz came in and said, "Let's clean house." So. Some of the weapons have been overwhelmingly that challenge. Our first choice is to buff underused weapons, but if we continue to push every weapon up higher and higher, it will be impossible to maintain challenging experiences. This is not a full list of changes, but some of the most impactful. So they're basically saying that the reason they're doing this is because they're feeling a ceiling that they're hitting right now. This DPS ceiling has been pushed up against. And in order for them to add more interesting stuff to the sandbox, they're saying that they have to make these dramatic changes. All right. These life-altering changes to my sandbox.
If I may, it's not like this is the first time we've heard this narrative, right? Every time they get into the Crucible, every time they get in, it's always about, well, we can't just buff everything or everything becomes meaningless and too crazy.
Or could they?
But we don't want to nerf everything. They said this. Although we're seeing that now, but they don't want to just nerf stuff. So they talked about a long time ago, you remember with Destiny 2, they want to reintroduce new weapons and stuff. And it does seem like it's kind of the same, but some things have not changed either. Like this goes back to Destiny 1.
There's a lot of echoes being heard from what we've seen in D1 with the stuff. So
let's hear the nerfs, and then we can talk about the...
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say, maybe before you read, I'm just going to name the things that are getting touched. And you can wonder at before you get into reading.
Okay.
Whisper of the Worm, Sleeper Simulant, Lord of Wolves, Ace of Spades. Moving on to armor, everything, Skull of Dire, Hamkara, Orpheus Rigs, Phoenix Protocol, Shards of Galanor, Ursa Furiosa, Quizinvest.
You know what all those have in common?
That they're awesome.
Fun.
No fun allowed. Come on.
So, Whisper of the Worm. Whisper of the Worm is already adjusted in Season of the Drifter, but an exotic that can generate an infinite amount of heavy ammo is still a gigantic outlier and renders many weapons irrelevant for certain encounters, which is true. When we did 0 Hour, it's like, well, if you don't have Whisper, you're essentially nerfing yourself by not having Whisper equipped. While exotics are intended to be powerful and novel, bypassing the ammo economy can tend to force us to adjust enemies to compensate, meaning they have to make bullet sponge enemies to compensate for that. Effectively results in sniper rifles as a whole being punished because of Whisper's unique ammo ability. As a result, we're removing the ammo generation ability so that we can increase the effectiveness of all other snipers that don't have an endless ammo supply. So White Nail pulls from reserves rather than manifesting it out of the sandbox, out of thin sandbox air. And reserve ammunition has been increased to 18 without ammo reserve perks. So you're probably going to get like 20 or 21 maybe. 20? Yeah, with armor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So right now it's 9, which is really bad.
It's going to be you're going to be getting a lot in reserve. So it might be the case of, I know everyone's like, oh my God, the world's officially ending. But it might be the case of during a damage phase, you can pump out 20 shots into a boss and you can go run around, you get some ammo, and then you can do the same thing again. So it might not be as bad as people think it is.
Yeah. So Watts, you had actually, in the DMs, you said this best part of your reaction was like, oh, they brought back White Nail, meaning like this is a White Nail classic now for the most part.
Yes.
So they kind of went all the way. Yeah, exactly. They went all the way back to that.
It's going back to Black Spindle in D1 because White Nail was a problem in D1.
Yeah,
Wow.
but
It's
to that
hilarious
point,
that they come back to that. Yeah.
I did at least because I had the same thought you did, Watts. I was like, well, you know what? I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, boom, 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 4, 5. I'm thinking 18's a lot. However, unlike D1, we don't have heavy ammo synths, and also we've gotten used to not sitting on your ammo forever, and sometimes ammo economy to get heavy can be challenging.
That's my biggest
depending
concern
on the
with
missions,
this stuff.
right?
Because so you're going to count off those shots.
Sit on it.
If you get about 20 shots off total, then that's like a good round. But the way the ammo economy has been in the game so far is that you feel lucky if you were to able to go and pull a full set of heavy in your next phase of killing ads.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, oh, I got lucky. Heavy ammo drop for me. So if they fix that, then I'm okay with that. But if they don't, then it's like, well, there goes that weapon.
So when I saw that Whisper was in the game and it had the original perk, I was like, what are you doing? Because clearly any gun that completely bypasses the ammo economy is a problem when you are creating encounters. Because as a designer, when you're creating a new boss room, for example, you're like, okay, well, now we have to design a boss around this one weapon of can people sit in the back and just plink away at the boss? Okay, well, how do we get them out of there? How do we get them down? How do we punish people for doing that? So you have all of these design questions around a single gun. And it gets to the point where it's like, just deal with the gun.
Yeah.
Instead of nerfing your design encounters, nerf the gun. And
do you think they had the new raid in mind?
It's hard to...
Sure they did. I think so.
So I have a feeling with Sleeper, maybe they did, because that was kind of out of left field. Whisper, I think it's the same problem with Icebreaker, where you are able to just kind of sit back and not interact with the actual encounter. So when they initially brought it into D2, I was like, this was a problem. Like, you saw it was a problem when you were making new content. It's going to be a problem again. It's going to get nerfed again.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm very confident that obviously in testing the new raid and content that it was one of the things they're like, okay, are we going to leave it like this? But more than that, we know Bungie is so data-driven. And I've no doubt they've been staring at this data of how many people are using Whisper. Like just
but is
over
it
and
that many
over.
though, or is it just like the people? Is it like the top end PvE players going for challenges and that kind of thing? Like, I don't know how many people are actually using Whisper.
I feel like it's got to be dominant, honestly.
Yeah, like I did 0 Hour, the new special mission, and I swear everybody that I knew was using Whisper at the end. What did you guys use?
I felt like it was a requirement.
Whisper.
Yeah,
all of us. I don't know if you played it, Benj, but
haven't done it.
Yeah, but it's you kind of need to practice and be ready for your huge tournament. But everybody's using it, so I can see that perspective.
Let's be honest, it makes PvE pretty easy. You remember going through the Forsaken campaign, and we were just like destroying everything because we could just sit there at the back and just kind of do massive damage. Plus, it has a catalyst and whispered breathing, which Black Spindle didn't have. That massively increases its damage. So
yes, you are correct in that aspect. But aren't we supposed to feel like we're space gods wielding space magic?
For sure. I'm actually totally fine with a gun being super powerful.
A gun is
and
imbued with god power.
Right, and I'm okay with it making encounters being, even feeling like, I'm super powerful because this is easy. But the biggest problem is the bypassing the ammo economy. That's the biggest thing, is that it enables players to not play the encounter in the way that they want to design it, or they have to design around one gun.
So I feel you, but at the same time, I felt like there was a lot of times I felt like I had to use Whisper because the ammo economy was so broken, where getting a brick of heavy was like...
Your point. I really liked your point of, I would love to see them drop more heavy ammo. I would really like to.
Yeah, my concern is that on the one hand, I do understand that, like, fine, you want to mix up the sandbox a bit, and it says everybody's just using Whisper, but it is fun to use. And I think that's part of the discussion. Like, we saw some of that starting to happen with, as much as the launch of Destiny 2 was just all over the place, but there was sort of like this middling, we're trying to even things out, but then everything became more like, I don't know, so are we going to end up like, well, maybe I'll use, Borealis, or maybe I'll use... are we still going to see a handful of exotics, which I think is the ideal, that you choose from, say, 3 or 4 awesome guns for an encounter versus just the one.
Right.
But that's my worry, is that in this, how can we be assured, because we've seen it happen before, that it's still going to leave us with something fun to use?
Yeah.
Like you said, you want to be that powerful god.
That's my thing, is like, I want the game to be fun. And if they're having a problem with things like DPS, then I feel like the encounters need to stop being designed around DPS specifically. They need to be more mechanic checked, which is
Benj,
more difficult. But
I definitely saw this nerf coming. Just like when people were like, "Let's get Icebreaker back," I'm like, "You don't want it back. They're just gonna nerf the fact that it regens ammo because you can't design stuff around that." But it's a tough thing. I feel like they kind of brought Whisper back, and it was like, "Oh, this super awesome perk is here. Come on back." Kind of knowing full well that they would have to nerf it eventually. I think the thing that really kind of worries me about the TWAB is that they didn't mention any buffs. And I don't know if that's because they haven't locked those in yet, so they don't want to mention what's happening to them. But if I'm writing this TWAB and I'm like, I'm getting rid of stuff that people like, I'm going to want to put in some buffs there, right? To kind of even the playing field, where it's like, you're not just losing Whisper, this thing's also being buffed, because absolutely you cannot just nerf things to make people use other stuff, because people are still going to use the stuff that's really, really good. It's not going to make people then start using something that sucks just because this other thing is not as good anymore. Look, you have to. What's interesting is that
they said they wanted to make other snipers effective, and they didn't talk about those changes. So like, they wanted to make changes to them, but they can't talk about them. So it seems like this is the bad news first and then good news next week.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that they reduce flinch across the board for like.
They aren't gonna do that. We can dream. We can dream, but
but it's really so bad, especially in PvE. It's like so bad.
Oh, it's awful. Nail on the head, as it were, with that one. Why is it that has been, like, I swear, over a year? Flinch? We've been year and a half since launch.
Like, we're into the DNA of the game.
It's a bug.
Didn't they say they weren't going to do anything about it, or that they were aware of it, but they weren't?
I know that there was a bug with sniper flinch specifically, and they were like trying to figure out how to fix that bug, and then they could then work on it.
I thought they did fix it, and it had to do with how the scopes.
I mean, it's not
like the parallax of the scopes, how they ended up swaying, and they had to go in and redo every scope with the images and all that. But they apparently,
I'm sure they can fix meaning your box breathing works fine, right? Like they can fix. They can make your sniper rifle not go all over the place. I'm sure there was.
I don't want to be shot by a shank and have to miss my whisper shot,
right?
Because I was shot by a freaking shank.
Exactly.
It's very aggravating.
Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore because you don't have to use your whisper.
Because I'm not going to use a whisper anymore.
We're using Darcy instead.
That's what everybody's saying, by the way. So maybe just to jump, like, are people going to use Darcy now? People are talking, barricades, Lunafaction boots, Darcy.
With Darcy, yep.
Is that the replacement, probably?
Yeah, because the only reason people use Whisper over Darcy is because of the unlimited ammo potential of White Nail. So now it's just like, because Darcy has the better, like, burst DPS, so Darcy will now be the go-to option.
I love Darcy, actually. So that's the part of me that's like, I actually wouldn't mind going back to use Darcy. However, I don't want to run out of heavy ammo. And I think that's the other side of it too. These are, at Whisper at least, is a heavy item. And heavy ammo economy is not great, like
telling you, it is bad.
If this was special ammo.
Yeah, no problem.
Because Icebreaker was special energy. Yeah. So we didn't have to face a problem like that, even when they were messing around with Icebreaker.
Yeah, I feel like the ammo economy issue is another one of these fundamental, like, it's in the DNA of the code that they just can't quite get right, you know? Like, sometimes you have 5 bricks drop, and then you have, like, 5 minutes go by with no heavy. You're like, well, of course I'm not going to use my heavy. I'm going to save it because of those situations, because I feel like I'm going to be starved of heavy most of the time. So I feel like they got to fix that if they're going to make lean heavier on this stuff.
So maybe just for like a more succinct version of a review of this, is everyone super upset about this? Are you open to the changes? I personally, I would like to see some change. I think that's the only thing I will say. And I know that now everyone's going to hate me on the show. And this, see ya, it's the last time I'll ever be here.
Thanks,
but like,
Fran.
I'm getting a little, I'm getting a little bored of the meta. It's so like, I knew I was going to use Whisper as soon as this new mission came out. I just knew it. And like, it'd be nice if it shifted in another direction with a few weapons. And that's my hope. But I don't know if Watts was the one that first was saying it, but like, what's going to rise up? What's the buffs? I don't know. I'm a little worried about it. When
we get the catalyst for Outbreak perfected, that would be really interesting if that's a super powerful gun because it's a primary. I would actually kind of like to have a meta where a primary is really, really strong for DPS.
Yeah, it's like a new version of Telesto almost.
I'll be honest.
Well, Rat King.
We haven't gone through the other stuff, and there's a lot.
It just feel about up, Whisper right now.
It feels like. It feels really silly. I'm not surprised, but it's super silly because we saw this in D1. We went down this path, and then it came back. We're like, oh, and it has the perk back. That was good because the heavy ammo economy sucks. But at the same time, you're right, Fran. It does suck to have to always use that gun. And I guess, like from a design perspective, I wish they would go a different solution, as in not having things be so reliant on needing to have DPS. You know, like sit in one spot and crit the leg or the head or whatever.
Yeah. Just to clarify too, it's not that I don't like using Whisper. I mean, I do in the right situation. It's like that's where this is. It's very hard to do. I don't know that I could solve it as a gameplay designer, but it's like, how do you design stuff where someone might use Darcy or Whisper, or inevitably something will rise to the top because that's just what we do. Yeah. We're just like water, up against a dam, and we will find whatever crack there is, and the largest crack will win. And we'll all, gravitate towards that. And like, inevitably, meaning, I don't know that we can get away from this. Like, we're joking that Darcy and Barricades is coming. But like, what if that's all we're doing instead and it's not as fun?
I think it is what's going to happen, honestly. I think Darcy's going to become more of a top tier choice because they have to make some fundamental changes in some of their design choices to make that not be the case. Because Darcy is the next in line for DPS. So if the focus is they're nerfing it because the DPS potential is too high, then you're just going to have those same DPS problems that we're solving for these next missions. They'll be fun, no doubt about it. It's going to be Destiny. I'll be enjoying it, but we'll still run into those same issues where it's like, okay, well, you just pick the best things for DPS.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. We'll always have the issues of something being strong and other things not being strong. And that just comes right back to the conversation we've had for like 4 years of they need to switch up the sandbox more frequently.
They do. Yeah, I agree.
Because then you'll be like, oh, okay, Whisper's super strong. Okay, now we're going into Outbreak being super strong. Okay, now Rockets are super strong. And it changes all the time, so it feels fresh and no one gets as mad because you don't get this favorite thing that you've had for this really long time and then it's just taken away from you.
See, I don't know, though. I feel like that's easy to say, but I think you'd still have why are you always changing it? I just started liking it.
Somebody's always going to be annoyed. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't know. I don't like using the same thing forever.
Yeah, they can never win.
It gets boring. They're never going to win with everyone, for sure.
Yeah. Still need quicker updates.
Yeah.
So Whisper is probably one of the largest concerns, but I think that does say something about how reliant we are on it. That if you can't save 18 in the mag or whatever it is, or get enough ammo, that it's still somewhat useful, or use a gun of, call it equal equivalency almost.
Here's what's going on, though, is it feels less exotic. And that's the crux of the issue, is that these are exotics. They're supposed to feel exotic. They're supposed to have that element to it that it's like, oh, that's why I'm choosing this exotic to give me this kind of type of edge. And them doing these type of nerfs, it's like less exotic now. It's like, yeah, it's exotic, but it's less exotic, less.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Sleeper Simulant. The reduction of bounced shot damage for Sleeper Simulant is already present on several important enemies. So this is already in their code. And
for some enemies,
apparently the bounce is a reduction shot or reduction damage. We are now making this reduction part of the weapon. So it's baked into it permanently across all damage. The bounce of the shot into damage points. The difference is difference in damage is too large between a single precision shot of Sleeper Simulant and an angled shot that pierces the target and then also hits the target again with the bounce projectiles. Much like Whisper, we've had to adjust enemies around that potential by making these changes a permanent part of the weapon. We can get into a more balanced, position. So they reduced ricochet bounce damage on boss combatants and modified precision behavior. Total damage is unchanged, but non-precision shots are significantly more forgiving.
I have a feeling that the new boss is just in a really tiny room with lots of angles, and they were like, "No, this can't happen. Get rid of it." He's just in a tiny room.
I think you were 100% right on that. When we were saying, all of us were like, "Why is this such a big deal for Sleeper?" I'll be honest, I don't remember, first of all, ever using the angle of something to.
I always shot the toes. I like look down, shoot the toe, bounce up.
That's okay. That's true. But I would say at large, I would struggle to believe that the player base at large is shooting angled shots to like defeat bosses in a super OP manner. I just don't hear much. So I think you're right. There's something with the new raid that they were like, yeah, this is going to be a problem.
I think they just straight up calculated it. They calculated like,
it was like who uses Sleeper? Like I can't remember the last time since it was like dominant in Gambit, and then it had that nerf. As a result, I don't see it anymore, and no one uses it, so I don't get.
Yeah, if you're gonna whip out a gun for fun, usually it's like 1,000 voices, assuming you have 1,000 voices.
Exactly. But that's what I was gonna say. If you don't have 1,000 voices, you actually do use, I think, Sleeper, or a lot of people still use Whisper, obviously. So that's part of what's changing. But anyway, I don't know what to make of it. I'm like, whatever. If you want to change the angled shot, it's not gonna bother me that much. So
I wasn't using Sleeper anyway, so I'm just gonna keep not using it.
Yeah.
It's silly. Again, it's one of these things where it's like, here's an exotic,
I'm really
and now it feels
about
less
that.
exotic.
It's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
I'm just confused about the Sleeper thing.
Weird.
I don't get it.
Right?
Weird. Yeah, it was weird. That's
Just straight up
our
weird. It's some
feedback. Weird.
It almost feels like some of the stuff is in responses to speedrunning and like high echelon PvE.
Yeah.
It's Glad's fault.
Yeah, like
Slay Rage.
It's Chevy's fault for
it's
soloing
Glad and
Argo.
Chevy, man. What the hell? It feels a little bit like that in response. Like they're seeing these little cracks of potential for DPS and saying, "Well, we're going to remove that."
I could see that a little, maybe. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Benj.
I was just saying, I think they should embrace that kind of like.
Yeah.
Seeing like these top tier like PvE players like doing these challenges and stuff, and seeing like the combinations and the weapons and DPS that are coming up with to be able to do these challenges in the first place. It shouldn't be then like trying to take that away from those players.
Yeah.
Should be like embracing it and like, okay, this is where we can go and this is what we can do, kind of thing.
I think it's easy to maybe have that perspective, but truthfully, I don't know that Bungie's changed since I've watched them since the Halo days, and like data. They just have a lot of graphs that we never see. They used to share those graphs a little more often, if you remember the TWAB. I would love to see that again, even though sometimes they were even too detailed. But what was it that they did recently? They made a change. It'll probably come to me later. But they made a change, and I was like, it was enhancement cores. So perfect example. I think they look at the data, and they're like, sorry, guys, data doesn't lie. I know you think it's fun, but 80% of the population is using Whisper. So sorry. Okay, your data tells you that, but going to the enhancement core example, as something that bothered me, enhancement cores are so freaking busted. They are not fun at all. I don't enjoy chasing them. I don't know anybody that enjoys chasing them. I don't want to log in and do a spider bounty. Sorry, I feel you on this. Out of enhancement cores. I don't have time for this nonsense. So we all cried for that, and they said, okay, we hear you're going to put in some stuff. But where I'm going with this is they said the data showed us that the amount used versus the amount that people were holding on to. But I would posit and defend, I'm holding on to them because I'm fearful to use them. Does your data account for that?
Yeah.
It won't, right. Yeah, it doesn't account for the reasoning behind why people have that amount. And
I would sit on them for half of a year.
Did they consider that some people are good at saving? You know, have a little savings account of enhancement.
And maybe
cores?
they have. Maybe they have a way to monitor that. But I'm just trying to use it as an example that data, and I know they know this, but data only tells so much of the story. So
exactly, yeah.
It's dangerous to only look at data, but I do believe they look at a lot of data still, and that's what has led to a lot of these changes.
And it's funny because we've had these discussions before as a community, being like, Bungie, why are you so laser focused on the data? Because it's not the true picture all the time. It's like just
they're like everybody uses shotguns. We're just no more shotguns in the Crucible.
Yeah.
And then that'll be broken for 3 months.
Yeah, they nerf all shotguns when really they needed to nerf one archetype, and that was
or fix flinch.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Speaking of shotguns, moving on. Lord of Wolves.
Yeah.
All right. Lord of Wolves received a massive increase in damage with the full benefits of the shotgun changes in Season of the Drifter. This made it a lot more popular, but we got a significant amount of feedback that release the wolves activating on every kill made it too difficult to control the weapon's ammo consumption. As a result, we're allowing you to swap between the two states to control the output while also reducing its output slightly. PvE damage is reduced by 20%. Release the Wolves perk has been reworked, so no longer triggers automatically on kill. The effect is now triggered by holding reload, similar to fundamentals on Hardlight and Borealis. And PvE damage and range bonuses on this effect have been removed and replaced with a universal damage bonus cap. Or damage bonus instead, sorry.
What's the damage bonus? They gave us the percentage that the damage has been nerfed. Why can't I get the percentage that the damage bonus
Sounds
gives?
like it was too low and they didn't want to say it.
No, 2%.
0.04%.
Yeah, they're like 5%.
And since I have it in front of me, Release the Wolves, just to catch everyone up, is defeating an enemy doubles the number of projectiles per burst for a short period of time. That seemed the thing they were focused on the most, that it just was triggering too much.
I don't hate the actual change to it where you have to select the mode, because I do definitely feel like I ate through an entire clip of Lord of Wolves when I was like, I didn't mean to do that. I was just bursting things. So I kind of like that. I might actually use it more in PvP actually, because with just the regular firing mode, so I don't chew through the ammo. But yeah, I like that. But the damage nerf, I have no idea how much I'm going to feel that, and I don't know how much the damage buff is, so I don't know how it's gonna feel because I don't have the number for the other thing either.
So what's the trade-off with this? Like, it does 20% less damage.
Yeah.
So you're going to be less likely to use it and use a regular shotgun instead. Back to Ikelos, or
Ikelos will probably reign supreme again.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, it just seems a bit unnecessary again. Like,
it does.
I don't know. Like, Lord of Wolves is a very good gun, but it's not like everyone's complaining about it and being like, oh my god, nerf it, nerf it, nerf it. Like,
yeah, I would have been fine with just changing, like giving us the option to switch between the two modes. I think that would be kind of cool, because then you can control it a little bit more of what you're wanting to do. But the damage I feel like was actually okay.
Yeah, I wasn't using it enough. That's what, I think is interesting. It's not like I felt like I had to use it like I did Whisper. So that's 20% is a huge nerf.
That's significant.
PvE, if you're a fan of the gun.
Yeah.
I love that gun. That gun's great.
You're going to feel that damage nerf. And like, it's a shotgun, so you kind of had to compromise yourself to get in front of a boss to use that as well. Yeah.
But to be fair, it's like you think about, again, I did know that Lord of the Wolves was definitely a prime choice. But we are getting stuck on like a handful of guns. Let's be honest, right? Like, when's the last time you have used Acrius? Like, I loved that gun when it came out. I just haven't bothered with it recently.
It's true.
I'm kind of wondering if some of these changes maybe, well, especially the Lord of Wolves one, has to do with the catalysts that are coming in Season of Opulence. I haven't looked at all the data mining to see exactly what's coming because I don't want to know, but I do know that a lot of catalysts are coming. So I don't know if the catalyst makes the gun so nuts that you have to kind of bring it back a little bit so it's not
getting a kill gives it 20% extra damage.
There you go. That's what the catalyst
does. Wow. Yeah, it's a little strange. Moving on.
Ooh, this next
and
one's
another one,
spicy.
Ace of Spades is pretty hot in the Crucible.
You don't say.
According to their data. See, what's weird is console, not so much, needed data. Right?
Yeah.
Not so much.
I've heard that.
Yeah. So on PC, obviously a lot, but on console, you hardly ever see it. But in here, they're saying Ace of Spades is pretty hot in the Crucible. Well,
I forgot about that.
See, this is interesting because most people play on console, right? Across Xbox and PlayStation, you have more people than PC. So if they're looking at data, then it's a little weird to me that they're seeing that the Ace of Spades is so hot.
Yeah, it needs a little asterisk or
maybe they're
on
just
PC.
they're just watching streams.
So wait, what are people just mostly using the Midnight Coup on console?
They're using Not Forgottens and
Luna's Howl.
Yeah, right.
If you have them, what if you don't have them?
If you don't have a service revolver, it's literally any 180 is better than any. Trust is huge.
Yeah, trust, service revolver,
trust.
Spare rations. You can also hire a recov for $1,000. Get yourself a Not Forgotten. Really easy.
It's so easy now. You got this.
Easiest way to do it.
Okay, so Ace of Spades is pretty hot in the Crucible and has been since its inclusion into Destiny 2 Forsaken. The number of perks on the weapon, combined with the semi-permanent effect of Memento Mori, gives the weapon too many advantages compared to other weapons. Now, the Memento Mori ends when you stow the weapon. So you swap the weapon out for your shotgun, you lose the extra bullets, or the bonus bullets. You need to make a decision on whether or not you want to keep the weapon drawn to retain the bonus. I don't think that's really a problem. In fact, when I had it out and I have those, I'm usually
just keep it.
Yeah, I'm like emptying it. Memento Mori now ends when the weapon's stowed. The PvP damage bonus for Memento Mori was slightly reduced to prevent 2-tapping Guardians while Vengeance, aka One-Eyed Mask, was active. Specifically, you need 4 Resilience to survive this, which that's pretty common, right? Spec for 4 Resilience or higher?
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Memento Mori is active for 6 shots again, up from 5. So remember, they dropped it down to 5 and changed the way it worked. Yeah. Now with this change, they boosted it back up to 6.
Yeah.
So this
just seems unnecessary again for me. Like, I play on PC and play PvP, and although Ace is a popular choice, it's not as dominant as like 180s are on console. So like on PC, there's actually quite a fair amount of variety in what weapons people use. And Ace is news, but it's not like crazy, like overpowered gun that everyone's using. So I just don't really see.
It's not like your only choice, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's loads of options, so I don't know.
I think you're right about that, but I will say, as someone who does not play Crucible as frequently enough, like daily or even weekly, I hop in a lot, and there's a lot of Ace. Like, there's a lot of it. Now, that's just for me. So, again, I don't have the full sample set across the week, but I do feel like there might be something. I'll be honest, I worry less about this one other than the fun factor. Because, like, the effects on the gun, the look of the gun, what it takes to earn the gun, it was tough to get. So I worry about that aspect, but I do see a lot of it. I wouldn't mind... because right on PC, it's Not Forgotten, Luna, or Ace. Honestly, for me, I don't know. Do you guys run into that?
I don't think the 180s are on PC very often.
No. What I'm saying is, when I get killed, you don't get killed by Lunas and Not Forgotten.
I haven't played PvP
Ace all the time
on PC a lot. When I watch streams, it's usually Ace or something else, not the 180s.
I get killed by Not Forgotten and Luna a ton.
180s get used at like the very, very top level. But like just under that, Ace is definitely a popular choice. Last Word is like really popular on PC. The pulses are really strong on PC.
I use
the 180 is definitely on it strong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. These don't.
I really don't mind the change.
Yeah, in terms of a nerf, it's not that drastic of a nerf. It's just weird that they're touching this gun again, like they just did, and now they're messing with it again.
Maybe it's the catalyst again.
Yeah,
you could be right about that, Watts. Yeah,
I have no idea what those catalysts are going to add to the guns. I don't even really see this as much of a nerf. It's just a weird change that didn't really need to happen.
Weird sidestep. See, here's the thing. They say it's hot in the Crucible, but the reason it's hot in the Crucible is because of its ability to land shots. And none of this adjusts its ability to land shots.
Well, that's the thing. Its range is really, really good. Like you can actually go against. You can use it against a lot of Lunas, especially because they have to be close to you, whereas you can go fight a little bit further back with Ace. So it's that is really good. The accuracy is really good. There's so much about Ace that is really good, and none of this does anything to do with
it. But you got to think it does reduce the amount of high-powered shots that you're potentially, because people holding on to it, switching, coming back to it, now they'll have to stick to that or nothing. Like they don't have the option to like shotgun someone, come back, right? And I think that does, meaning ultimately you reduce some of those high powered shots that are making it out the door, which is something. It's just, it's interesting if you were to look at the overall damage in a match. there's a percentage here, and I don't know what it is, but it might be taking down a player's ace of spades damage by 10, 15% across the whole match or something, right? I'm making that number up, but so there's something here. And again, like I don't use it enough. Yeah, it's a cool gun. I don't think they've done anything to it that are gonna super piss people off. But you know, Benj, you probably use it more than any of us.
Yeah, I've used it a lot. Like,
do you think people are gonna be upset by this?
Not really. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Like, I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like, so like it kind of feels like you can pretty much always have the extra damage bullets if you play your cards right in PvP, which does give you a big advantage. So I guess it just adds a little bit of a tiny bit of a skill gap to it, and that you just got to pay that little bit more attention to, you know, when you're stowing it and pulling it back out again.
Yeah, and they're technically making it less effective too, those extra damage bullets in the PvP.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Yeah, and you get, I mean, it's now active up for those 6 shots too, so they did give it a slight buff for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Overall, it'll probably not change at all position-wise. I think it'll still be popular.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving on.
Probably. Yeah.
Exotic
a lot of armor. Super energy changes coming.
Yeah, so let's see. Exotic armor, along with weapons above, we will also be making some changes to some exotic armor pieces, primarily paying attention to the pieces of exotic armor that grant back super energy. We felt they are increasingly becoming must-pick gear choices, which is true. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Orb generation from teammates is meant to be the best way to accelerate your super generation. So Bungie's saying that they want you to get your super back from your teammates making orbs by this, instead of getting your super pack from the exotics that you're picking. These exotics are allowing players to bypass this teamwork mechanic by generating a large amount of super energy without relying on other players' orbs. Also, because these items are so overwhelmingly strong in situations where players face off against a large number of enemies, some activities were designed considering the use of armor such as Orpheus Rigs, Phoenix Protocol, Skull of Dire, Aramkara, etc. This means if someone in your fire team doesn't have these super exotics equipped, the activity becomes far more difficult. That's interesting. So they actually designed around those exotics, thinking that you were going to have those in certain encounters. We're making some changes to these armor pieces to try to preserve their power fantasy and still leave them as viable choices for difficult activities without making players feel like they must have them equipped or be at a huge disadvantage. Super generating exotic armor changes. Skull of Dire, Ahamkara, Orpheus Rigs, and Phoenix Protocol now receive super energy back with diminishing returns, making it rarer to get a full super back. Let's talk about that.
So possible, but rare.
Well, yeah.
Still
how do you guys read this? Does that mean
it sounds like less
successive?
That's how I read that.
Oh, got him. Wow. Does that mean each successive, say, I use Orpheus Rigs a ton, obviously.
And it's super fun to see that super bar pop right back,
super
right?
Fun. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's one of the main reasons you use it. If you use it right as well, I mean, you do have to tether enough enemies to make it worthwhile. Does it mean that each successive one gets worse?
See, I thought that when I initially read it, but now I think they just mean that you're just getting less returned to you.
Okay, and I think that makes way more sense because a progressive, like,
now receive the more super you use it, the more you hate diminishing returns, making it rarer to get full super back.
Diminishing returns.
I know, it's really weirdly worded.
I think it just means less than what
I think it just means less.
Yeah.
Cosmo's number call.
See, this is the thing. They didn't put a number in here. You want to know why? Because it's steep. That's why. They don't want people going, damn, how much of a nerf?
I saw a tweet from Bife, and Bife said, the reason that I don't use Mechaneer's trick sleeves is because they're bad, not because Orpheus Rigs are good. So you can make any of the super generating exotics terrible to where they give you like the tiniest amount of super energy back. People are still probably going to use it in PvE because that's just something that is so valuable in PvE.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're talking about the mechanic is they want people to work together to generate orbs for each other. So they're forcing
exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, they're forcing a narrative of saying like, hey, if you're not making orbs for your teammates, then you're playing it wrong. And that, to me, that's a big red flag. That's like, hey, I want to play Destiny the way I want to play. If I want to be some lone wolf racking up a bunch of tethers because I'm wearing Orpheus Rigs, that's me. That's me doing that. Or Shards of Galanor. I think that's my choice to have that kind of fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Like the way people play, like So people take advantage of this and can chain supers. So like you're working as a team anyway. So you're not using the orbs to get each other's supers, but like you're getting your super back and then using your super straight away and then generating orbs for the next person to get their super. So like that teamwork's there because of the exotics and how they are right now. And that works well, and like it requires like good like teamwork and communication to pull that off. And then it's really satisfying when you get like when you constantly chain the supers and you feel powerful and it feels good. So if that's like not possible now, I don't think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. For PvE, this is a big,
like I said,
change.
The raid boss is just in a tiny room, and your Skull of Dire Ahamkara and Sleeper Simulant was going to be too much.
Too damn much.
Orpheus rigs and
Insta-kill.
So to reading on, Shards Galanor and Ursa Furiosa had their super gain caps reduced to be in parity with other super exotic changes, so they just want to essentially bring them in line to what's happening with the others. And Gwyn's Invest had its energy reduced from 15% to 8% for killing 1 to 2 Guardians. Still scales up similar to before when killing 3 or more Guardians. PvE energy return remains similar to before as well.
So wait, Quiz Invest had its energy reduced from 15 to 8%. Is that how much you get back? That's what it's saying?
Yeah, I think so.
From 15% to 8%.
From 50. It's almost halved.
Yeah.
So that's bringing down quite a bit based on the kills you're getting.
We got actual numbers right there. That's what makes me think that the other ones got reduced significantly.
They're worse than that one? Maybe Cosmo just didn't write it, though.
I think they cut that thing
Busy
in half.
day.
Lazy, right?
They're saying rarer to get a full super back. Rarer.
That means never, probably.
Yeah, that means like, I got my full super. Crazy. RNG.
Yeah.
For Orpheus rigs, you got it like every time. So Rara maybe is not terrible.
Actually, you know what? I now that you're saying it, I think you're right that it's significant.
It's going to be significant, yeah.
I remember when Orpheus rigs came out, and I thought it was bugged because it just launched, and somebody told me what it did. And I said, whoa, that's messed up. And I wasn't a hunter at the time. I was a Titan or a Warlock or something. And I actually just went on about playing and didn't even cross my mind that it wasn't going to be fixed in the next patch or whatever. Then a couple days went on. I was like, wait, that's how they work? I was like, show me this. And like, it's incredible when you think about it. When you go back and think about how we've accepted some of these changes, to be fair, Shards Galanor, Gwizinvest, like it's gotten a little crazy. And I remember them talking about the super narrative as well and how they want you to feel powerful. Like you're talking about, Tef, like it is fun. And they want that. And they actually nailed it in a lot of respects. It almost seems like there's a narrative that's changing inside Bungie right now.
It really does.
Time out. This arcadey supers for everyone, whatever. We need to bring this down to be fair, like in Destiny we had our moments
vanilla.
No, not that. Hopefully to be fair, right, in Destiny 1, I'm struggling to think of any moment where I would like be generating like tons of super regen, you know? I'm probably forgetting and somebody correct me very shortly, but Destiny 2, you're pretty powerful with the super regen stuff. So it almost seems like, in a way, in other words, maybe there's another way to look at it, that they're trying to restore some of the balance of, call it, what we liked in D1 maybe.
The super mod's not a factor as well, though. Like to take into consideration, like people running, like how many people run like 5, meaning they get their super back ridiculously quick.
Paragon mods, whatever it is.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah.
Titans and Bubbles provide a lot of orbs.
I hear you, but when we went down the path of let's have this more balanced, the overwhelming result was that's just not as fun. Just
true.
Not as exciting. Like you don't want to have a situation where you're going through a strike and only walking away with like 2 supers. In fact, you remember that in detail? That's crazy to think about. Like you would literally just get 2 supers when you did a strike in vanilla.
Yes, and I agree. That was absolutely a problem. Where I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I want to use. Yeah, that was the problem.
That was
like,
nuts, right?
Use my super, and I sometimes I would, depending on how things went, or you know, maybe I wasn't paying attention because I was streaming, and like I wouldn't even get 2 supers until the very end when the boss is already dead or something. I'm like, all right, well, I didn't even get to use it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna equip my spin foil hat and say maybe these are changes setting up for a larger change of the way that Sandbox and making builds are going to be in the future. So what if, for example, what if we had, you know, like the old D1 system come back of the, instead of using mods to get your super, you had intellect and stuff like that? Or what if they just created more builds in general of, you can kind of spec into this thing and this can make your super come back more. And then maybe we get exotics that are more niche and really go into that build that you create. If that's the case, I'll be happy.
That's
I
interesting.
want more RPG elements.
I would like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just what I want.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Like maybe we're turning into a new era here. Like we've spent a lot of time in the very super powered Guardian. You know, as much as there's things to fix and things not to, but maybe we're turning a corner, and this is the beginning to test. Before, when you think about it too, this is before the big release, probably that Holtzman's now working on and coming out in September. It makes a lot of sense that they need to get some of this out the door, judge these reactions, test it, right? So I think you're right about some of that.
So someone in chat just said, "Have you seen DMG's tweet?"
Yeah, what do you say?
And the tweet is
say
from
April
6
Fools?
minutes ago. And it's the Destiny 2 original soundtrack, track number 7, Forge Ahead. He just tweeted the soundtrack. Like, it's literally it's the song Forge Ahead.
Do you
Is there anything in the song we need to know about?
Interesting.
Do you think he just had visions of bread dancing around and he decided to tweet that?
Forge a bread.
Maybe it's a sign that we're, you know, like Fran had said, we're turning over a new leaf into a new.
Okay.
We're forging ahead into a new.
I love where this is going. Can we all get the spinfoil hats out? This is great.
So I
like
things moving forward. I like forging ahead, all that stuff. But we went down a path before with this game, and we tried to hammer it home before on this podcast as well about how they need to make sure that they test these things with fun in mind. Like if a change dramatically changes the game and makes it less fun, they seriously need to reconsider those things, because it's a fantasy game first. It's in my opinion, it's a PvE power fantasy space magic type of game first, and then a balance competitive type of game second. And it's how I feel about the game. And I want them to make sure that they maintain fun first and foremost. And if they do pull things back to make room for things that have some great character RPG elements, that's great. I'd love to see that. But I definitely want them to make sure fun is first and foremost.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought your strike example was really good. Like, we don't want to go through another strike and feel generally powerless. Even if it was a challenge. You know, we got to have fun in between.
I agree.
What else have they?
Let's see. Was there anything else? There's a T-shirt for Trevor.
You should. I think it's worth reading the final line there.
Yeah, we're sympathetic about the fact that the changes we make in the interest of balancing combat and game design can be jarring. It was important that we have this conversation before you read the patch notes. We know many of you have a lot riding on the day one of Season of Opulence. Hopefully this intel will assist you in building the perfect monster-killing machines for the next season of play. It is nice that they acknowledge that, but at the same time, I feel like the slapback, if they hadn't mentioned this stuff on June 4th, would have been like vicious.
I'm really glad they mentioned the big stuff this early on, and that maybe, you know, we get the patch notes and it's like, this has been buffed. Hey, yeah, cool, fun.
Yeah.
You know?
It's still...
I feel like that paragraph tough, is them acknowleding how angry some people are going to be about some of those changes.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's still tough, right? Because the update comes on June 4th for this. Are they gonna do the week early, maybe? But
I'm assuming
we do
June
need
4th.
A little time. Hopefully, a week early, like we normally would see.
Yeah.
But for seasons, we don't normally see that, though. Right?
Exactly. It's like it's
so, like,
pie in the sky.
If this is day one, it's like a little tough to adjust things without actually trying it. But
yeah. So
why don't you change this stuff a little early, Bungie? Give us a little, like 1 week. In addition to this information, would be awesome. But I don't know.
Also, I think they're probably going to have a buff list next week, most likely.
Buff
I
list?
hope so.
Right?
Why do you guys think that?
We're going to get more nerfs next week.
More nerfs?
I don't know, man.
More nerfs.
All these supers
see how
in the trash.
See how far they can push it with all the nerfs.
They just keep talking about them like in succession. Oh man,
that'd be amazing.
I don't know. It seems weird to me that they would wait to talk about. I mean, maybe, but it's weird to separate them, like you said.
Out of the way, I guess.
I think they know that the dominant conversation is going to be, "What did you do to my beloved exotic?"
That could be the case. Yeah, maybe they wanted to put that out first so everyone can see it and kind of digest it. And then here's the buffs. Because maybe if they were worried that if they put the buffs at the same time, where yes, it would kind of counteract the nerfs that are coming, but at the same time, maybe people would just completely overlook it and be like, Whisper's getting nerfed, so I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly.
Basically, give people a cooldown period.
Exactly.
After reading this news.
A cooldown with diminishing returns, Benj.
Of course.
Rarer chance of full excitement.
All our new keywords to use.
Yeah, that's what I think is happening. I could be completely wrong, though. It does feel like a new Bungie. Or new narrative.
Yeah.
From reading between the lines.
They hired a bunch of new people.
They did.
Like a lot. I saw on Twitter, just all on my feed, it was like, today was my first day of Bungie. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's a lot of people's first day.
Right? Yeah.
A lot of good senior people, though, have moved on. So I think, I don't know. Did you see them hiring a lot of senior people, Watts?
I don't really remember. Yeah. I mean, you have to remember that the people that left are the ones that really like Bloom and really like Flinch.
Wow. Wow, is that the correlations you're making?
Fingers crossed, Flinch is going away. Come on.
I don't think that's what was stopping them. I think they just did a lot of restructuring budgetarily, and
I mean, they brought.
So I'd be curious who they brought in, but
they brought in Change for PvP, which is I think is a really big positive step in the right direction because he's like a top tier player. So to bring him in for, I'm guessing it's like the 6-month thing. So Changed was in Bomb Squad Kittens, and he's like, I think he was like #1 in quick play. Play PC, #1 in quick play, like statistically, like amazing player, and they've picked him up for like I think the 6-month thing, like similar to what Holtzman's doing. So he'll be working on like PvP and stuff. So that could only be a good thing. I guess.
The fact they grabbed a PvP player, like a very he's a PvP player. They grabbed someone like that to do gameplay testing. I think that was a really positive for me when I saw that.